When was the last time you took a moment to stop and look around, allowing yourself to be completely consumed by where you are, taking in everything and letting your surroundings wash over you? If you're like most people, the answer is not recently. Every day we get up, put on our clothes, and drive to work. However, most of us don't realize what goes by. After a while, it all begins to blend together. Memories aren't made this way. You don't get to live if all you see is where you're going, forgetting where you are. And it is in this vein that the City of Oaks Foundation operates. Far too often do we lose sight of what we have in order to build towards what we want. And in doing so, much of what is here is lost. This is not to say that growth in and of itself is bad. It is in fact the nature of things. They mature. So as we cultivate our ever-expanding horizons, we must strive to safeguard the natural beauty we are so blessed to have.
Well, as I said, my grandfather really loved this farm a lot, and I think it was contagious. And I've always wanted to come back here, so after school I did. When I was about 9, my cousin, who was 6 weeks younger than I am, decided we would build a tree house, and we chose a tree that's actually just about 50 feet from where our house now stands, a great big hickory that had 3 trunks. And we drove 16 penny nails into the back of the tree to form steps, and we climbed about 40 feet up, and we built a small platform. That was our tree house. From that height, I could look down the lake, and I thought, well, if I ever built a house, this is where I want to build it. It took about 30 years to get there. Well, it's fair to say that we're still suffering from sprawl, although I think both the City Council and the Board of County Commissioners at least have been thinking about how to deal with that. We're now completely surrounded with subdivisions. When I was growing up, it felt like an all-day trip to come out to the farm. It was way out of town. Now the city limits have moved beyond us, so we're completely encircled by the city, and we're not part of it. And I think it's unfortunate in a way, because when the developers did come in, they tend to clear-cut everything. They tend to rearrange the topography. If it doesn't suit them for whatever they're planning to build, they'll move yards, thousands of yards of dirt, and chop up, beat it, They will completely level the areas they want leveled. They will dig up and crush the rock that's in the way. They'll plant a few things back, but by and large, the area for years afterwards still looks very denuded.
We at the City of Oaks Foundation believe that along with growing businesses, along with great schools and strong neighborhoods, that the city needs great open space. And in partnership with the city's Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department, the City of Oaks Foundation mission is to do exactly that. The great thing about the Kellam-Wyatt Farm is it represents so much of what the City of Oaks Foundation wants to do. Protecting clean water, keeping local farms and food in the community, and making sure that environmental education is available to our kids and even to adults are just 3 priorities that the City of Oaks Foundation is working on.
Recently, it seems that everyday life has overtaken any aspect of remembrance. People lose sight of what is important, making it hard to hold on to things, even that which has been passed down generation to generation. So that is why it is so amazing that Bob Kellam and his wife have chosen to create a conservation easement, doing so in order to preserve his grandfather's legacy.
I mentioned before that when I was growing up, this was all pretty much farmland, and now it is fairly densely populated. It's always been a bit of a concern that we haven't been able to deal that well with the idea of sprawl. I do think that both Raleigh and Wake County now have more aggressive programs to deal with sprawl, and I'm hopeful that that things will, if not continue to improve, at least won't get any worse. But I think it is fair to say that that's something that both communities ought to be dealing with more effectively, and that the programs to conserve open space that both the county and the city have are in the right direction. Again, we would be hopeful that both of the local governments would, be partners with us in how we eventually manage this land. One of my jobs when I was about 8 was to drive the mule sleds back to the barn. And in those days, we used wooden sleds with wooden runners instead of tractors. They weren't leaving out the 5th row for the tractors. The mule knew where he was going. He knew that once he got back to the barn, he was going to get a few minutes of rest and something to eat. And my job was just to stand on the back of the sleds, hanging on for dear life and yelling, "Whoa!" And he would drag me all the way down the paths and across the dam and up into the area where the tobacco barns were. But one of the paths actually goes right by the house out here. And I can remember thinking, if I ever built a house, this is where I'd want to build it. So we have been very fortunate that we have a house. And whenever I'm upstairs looking out through the windows, I'm thinking, this is kind of the same view I had from that tree house 60 years ago.